Hello everyone, welcome on in. It is Betting Weekly Game Bet Match. It's the second episode of the week. It's the penultimate week on the ATP Tour. It's the last regular week before the Tour Championships. I'd like to say, as per usual, I'm Nigel Seeley. I'm joined by our senior ATP Tour handicapper to look at the 250 events tomorrow in Belgrade and Metz. It's Sean Calvert. Good morning to you, Sean. Good afternoon to you, Sean.
Good afternoon. You all right?
Been an eventful morning. We couldn't when we did the show on Saturday. Was it Saturday?
It was Saturday.
Saturday. Yeah, Saturday. We looked at the outright market. There was no price to round because everyone was expecting some withdrawals. There was a whole host of withdrawals. We knew that there was two places up for grabs in Turin for the Tour Championship with three players vying for that. All of them were in action. And then this morning, we've broken up to the news that Novak Djokovic has withdrawn from the Tour Championships, which means this tournament, we thought it was a tricky one, has now become a little bit more puzzling, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the reasons why I didn't have a bet on it. The main reason was we didn't have any odds, but the other reason is I knew there was going to be a few more withdrawals. Kind of surprising that Dimitrov didn't pull out. Maybe he knew something. I don't know. But yeah, the guys were just the Diminors and the Rublevs and the Dimitrovs. They were just there. Well, Dimitrov, but they were there trying to get these points to qualify for Turin. And obviously, there was always the risk that Djokovic would pull out. He did say a few times, Paris, no, Turin, not sure. So now that they don't need to qualify, I mean, Rublev's playing even as we speak, isn't he, in Metz, playing against Sonego, but Diminor gave it a couple of hours, didn't he, and then withdrew from Belgrade. And there's been tons of other withdrawals as well. So it was a minefield anyway. I mean, initially it was a minefield with no odds. Now it's just a slightly less of a minefield.
Yeah, Casper Ruud is obviously the other player that we're talking about. All three of them needed to do well in this tournament to qualify for the Turin World End Championship, Tour End Championships. Djokovic is out now. All three of them are qualified. So I don't think motivation is going to be it's going to be very questionable for those players. I don't believe those players will participate in this tournament. Obviously, Sean said their Diminor has already withdrawn from
just
Belgrade.
Recently, the last 20 minutes, yeah.
And I expect probably some more withdrawals here in Metz on the outright market. If they don't withdraw, look out for these matches involving Rublev and Casper Ruud in the next couple of days, because they'll probably be a heavy favourite on the market, but really, are they going to be up for this challenge? We'll wait and see. That's all to come. Unfortunately, none of those players are in action tomorrow for the matches that we are going to discuss, and we have a couple of matches to discuss at both tournaments. We're going to start off with the one over in Belgrade, and we're going to start off with a match between Daniel Altmaier and Christopher O'Connell. The German Altmaier is up against O'Connell.
Should we do the conditions? Sorry, mate. Should we do the conditions first?
Oh, sorry. Yes, sorry.
Because we didn't really know, did we? If you remember on Saturday's show, we knew it was a lake hold on a Haro surface, but that was about it, wasn't it? I had to email the tournament because I've no idea what balls they were using. I suspected it was Dunlop ATP, and it is, in fact, Dunlop ATP. They got back to me within about 20 minutes. To be honest, to be fair to Belgrade. So,
I can't imagine many people email them to find out what balls they're using at this tournament.
Yeah, but they just,
I'm surprised it took as long as 20 minutes.
Well, they just ignore you sometimes. If they don't want to give you the information, then they just ignore you. Maybe Belgrade, because it's a new tournament, they're keen as mustard. They're, happy to get, as you say, happy to get some correspondence. Anyway, Dunlop ATP, but there's been the usual mix of opinions from players. I mean, for me, Belgrade looks a pretty decent pace, kind of medium, I would say, quite slick, quite low bouncing, but the players, as usual, can't make up their minds. Medvedevic, who's looked really good here so far, he said, it's fast, so it suits my game. Marin Cilic, it's slower than Paris and a lower bounce. And Laszlo Djere, I don't really agree that it's slow. So I don't know what he was disagreeing with, but somebody obviously said it was slow. Djere's disagreeing, so again, this is what we're up against. But if you look at the stats after 10 main draw matches, I've gone through all the individual matches and worked out the stats. 68% first serve points won, which is pretty low. But the other side of that is there have been some pretty awful performances. Kekmanovic springs to mind. I mentioned him being too short, didn't I, against O'Connell, and I think he only won 2 games, didn't he, against O'Connell? Then withdrew from the double, so he was either injured or just plain couldn't be bothered. So things like that do bring, the stats down. If you watch Medvedevic a few minutes ago, an hour or so ago, on this court, you would say it was pretty quick because he was hitting, and Safilin to the same sort of extent. Safilin won 96% of his first serve points against Fognini. Medvedevic, I haven't seen the stats, but he must have won getting on for that sort of amount as well. So if you are serving big, you do get your rewards here. But as I say, there's been some tanky performances which bring the stats down. But ultimately, I'd say it was a medium-ish paced, low bouncing indoor hard court. Sorry to butt in there, mate.
No, it's fine. No, it's very important. I should have mentioned that in the past. In the beginning, what's the underdogs? You said looking for underdogs. I bet a few underdogs, and I haven't picked up much money. I could assure you that in the first round. I've lost on pretty much everyone I've gone in on.
Yeah, this is a brand new tournament, Belgrade. Obviously, Metz last year. I think I said there was getting on for 50%, wasn't there? Underdog winners last year. I guess Bear was one, wasn't he, against Martinez? I watched all 3 sets of that, which took about a year. Was there a Bear underdog for that? I guess he probably was.
I didn't. Well, it wasn't one of the underdogs I bet. I bet in the 2 tournaments this week. I've bet Kabaj.
That was unlucky. He should have won that.
I bet I opposed Cilic in his match. He won. I think I've had 4 bets, 4 underdogs, and lost on every single one.
Well, the rest are going to win then. There you go.
The Mickelson. I opposed Mickelson, didn't I?
That was weird as well. Mayo. He had 8 break points.
I tried to forget the losers.
8 break points in the 3rd game of the match he had. Didn't take any of them and barely won a game after that. His head completely went after not converting any of those 8 break point chances. If it had taken one of them, probably would have been a different result, but very disappointing collapse from him having not taken any of those break points.
And I've bet Lorenzo Sonego today, the underdog, looks like he's going to lose the first set, having
looks like it
multiple break points as well. So, not a very good tournament for me on the underdogs, I must admit. I thought it would be so far, but I thought it might be a good one. But anyway, let's move on to tomorrow. I was a bit ahead of myself there without Sean giving the information that we need. That's very important that we have that information. So I apologise if I move forward there. And the match we discussed, as I said, Altmaier, the German, against Christopher O'Connor. O'Connor had a brilliant first round win. A lean for Sean against Kekmanovic. Kekmanovic, was, as Sean said there, was awful in a 6-1, 6-1 defeat. Was that O'Connor playing exceptional tennis? I think he played very well, but Kekmanovic was an injury.
Yeah.
Bit of both, yeah. O'Connor is the favourite here, though. He's minus 162. Altmaier is plus 130. The spread is 1.5, and the total very, very high, as you would expect, 23.5. Altmaier leads, won the first meeting they had in Cincinnati in a tight one, 6-4 in the 3rd. Then they met in Stuttgart, and O'Connell got revenge on that one on a grass court where he won very easy, 6-3, 6-1. So the head-to-head is pretty even. I would have thought that the odds might be a little bit more even than what they suggest here, but O'Connor is quite a convincing favourite with Bet Rivers. I suppose that's probably looking at that first round match and thinking dismantling Kekmanovic, but I think it's probably a little bit closer than those odds suggest.
I like O'Connell here. I mean, when I looked at this match initially, the layers had Altmaier as favourite, which it didn't last long, by the way. I looked at it and I kind of went off to do something else, and the next time I looked, it was the other way around, and that's not surprising for me. Very surprised to see Altmaier initially priced up as favourite. If you look at their all-time indoor hard record at main level, Altmaier 4-9 win-loss, service points won and return points won, total of 96. O'Connell's only played 6 matches, lost 4 of them, but he's got 101 total. That is boosted by the no-show really from Kekmanovic, but even so, Altmaier's stats there, that it kind of tells you all you need to know. 4-9 win-loss, 96 total. Doesn't surprise me really. Altmaier, anyone that's seen him play will undoubtedly know that he's usually at his best on clay, a kind of slow, bouncy clay court. Gives him much more time to set up, particularly on the backhand side. This is low bouncing, indoor hard. Doesn't seem to me like it'll suit him. His backhand can really be rushed in these sorts of conditions. They both have nice single-handed backhands, these two, so it'll probably be a nice match to watch if you like that. If you like the single-handers, which a lot of people do, it's quite an elegant shot, isn't it? But you can certainly rush the Altmaier backhand in these conditions for sure. Looking at their head-to-head, as you said, they played a couple of times. O'Connell won easily on the grass in Stuttgart. Should have won the Cincy match as well. He was just setting to break up in that. O'Connell kind of ended up losing his way, ended up losing it 6-4 in the 3rd. But the stats of their head-to-head of those 2 matches massively in favour of O'Connell. In terms of service points won and return points, 110-90 in favour of O'Connell. And breaking that down, we'll see that Altmaier has done nothing at all on the O'Connell serve. Only 29% of return points won for Altmaier compared to 38% for O'Connell. And O'Connell's held serve 92% of the time in those 2 matches. He really let that one in Cincinnati get away from him, did O'Connell. Hopefully won't make the same mistake here. I mean, he played pretty well, very well against Kekmanovic. He did it quite a few lines, and it was one of them days where everything went his way. And it doesn't take much for Kekmanovic to jack it in, does it? I said before in my preview of this match, he's never looks like he's enjoying himself, and he gets down on himself very quickly. And you know, he may have been injured because he withdrew from the doubles as well, or he just thought, I've had enough. That's me done for the year. It's one of those two things, I think. So I like O'Connell on the handicap here. When I was looking at the odds earlier, minus 2.5 games was a plus money chance, 2.1. So I'll be that's the one. I think for me, I think O'Connell, if he is to win this, I think he'll win it with a little bit to spare.
Yeah, minus 2.5 games is plus money. Minus 1.5 games is minus 124. You can move the toggle on the Bet Rivers website, move it up to 3.5, whichever you want to play, and play the higher handicap and obviously get the bigger price. Remember to subscribe to the YouTube channel, been in weekly studios. Make sure you subscribe. Hit the subscribe button, like all the content is coming your way. Obviously, the tennis season's coming to an end, but loads of action on the soccer as it hots up in the next couple of months on there. The next match we're going to move on to is Denis Shapovalov against Nuno Borges. Borges is the seeded player here. He's number 5 seed. He's in the bottom half of the draw in the number 2 position. He hasn't played yet in the tournament. He's got a bye. This is his match he's got the bye for. But Shapovalov has been a busy man. He reached the quarterfinals in Basel, where he got beat by Mpetshi Perregard, who went on to win the tournament.
Yeah.
2-1. A very close match there. He played well. Shapovalov beat Bautista as good, and he beat Zhang as well. And then in Belgrade here, he's played 3 matches, come through 2 qualification matches and just beat Fucsovic. So if you like to get with players who test the use of the conditions, Denis Shapovalov has definitely got the edge over Borges, who hasn't won an indoor match this year. Shapovalov is a heavy favourite, though. Bearing that in mind, he's minus 345. Borges is plus 265. Spread 3.5, and total here is 22.5. And as we speak, there has been a bit of money for Shapovalov as the day goes on, and Bet Rivers are offering the best price in the land on Borges if you want to take him there at plus 265.
Yeah, I mean, Shapovalov at minus 345, against a guy who's in the top 40 in the world, top 35 in the world. Not for me. He's so inconsistent, Shapovalov. Again, we saw it on Monday in that match against Fucsovic that you mentioned. 8 aces, 9 double faults. You just don't know what you're going to get with Shapovalov. He ended up winning that match against Fucsovic from, a difficult position. Fucsovic should probably have done better in that match, but it just doesn't seem fit at the minute. Fucsovic, I think that's his main problem. Won the first set, got to a very tight situation in the second set, ended up losing it, Fucsovic, and then he faded away as he has done a lot recently. Fucsovic doesn't seem to be completely match fit, but I mean, as far as Shapovalov's concerned, he's still got the Davis Cup left to come, so his season is still alive. So maybe the layers are thinking, well, he is playing well, he's in form, he is playing good tennis at the minute on indoor hard, but Borges' season is not really over for me, because he can finish in the top 32 and therefore be seeded for the Australian Open. He's number 33 right now. All he's got to do is beat Shapovalov and he's up to 32. So I think that'll enter his thinking. It might not, but I think it probably will. And Borges is coming back after a wrist injury. Took a bit of a break after the US Open. Played well at the US Open. Beat Kokinakis, Mensik. Lost to Medvedev. He's had a very, very good season, but slight injury after the US Open put him, on the back foot a bit. The other thing I quite like about Borges here is he's got a very good record against left-handers. At main level, he's 9-6 win-loss. That rises to 11-6 if you include Davis Cup. And he was unlucky to lose the most recent match against the left-hander, which was against Tabilo in Paris last week. He got a service points won and return points won, total of 103 in that match, Borges, and ended up losing it. So a little bit unlucky there, possibly a bit rusty as well after that wrist injury. The other issue is that Borges doesn't have much of a record on indoor hard. I mean, purely because he hasn't really played that many matches on this surface. Shapovalov's been in good form, as I said, which is why he's the price that he is. But, minus 345, you just don't know what you're going to get with Shapovalov. If he comes in and plays his A game, yeah, he'll probably win. But if he doesn't and the double faults start leaking, Borges very solid on the backhand side, very good record against lefties. I would be going over 22.5 here, I think, at 1.96. I think that is minus 104, I believe. We bet Rivers. I can't see Shapovalov. If Borges is up for this, which he should be, given the scenario that I just mentioned, I can't see Shapo winning this easily. So, yeah, overs for me here.
Yeah, motivation is questionable for a lot of players, but Borges trying to get seeded for the Australian Open. It's always in the players' thoughts, even at this end of the season, for what's going to happen next year at the Australian Open. And talking about Australian Open, I have an exclusive pick on the Australian Open already, and I've sent it across to Bet Rivers Betting Weekly Studios subscribers of our newsletter. Our newsletter went out on Monday, and you can get that by subscribing to our newsletter, which you can do on the website www.bettingweeklystudios.com. All you have to do is put your email address, and you'll be added to the newsletter, which will be going out every week. There's picks on the soccer from Steve Wiss and James Eastham, and a tennis pick from me already at the Australian Open, men's singles. Final match we're going to discuss over in Belgrade. It's Fabian Marozsan against Dusan Lajovic, two players who have been in pretty awful form coming into this tournament. Lajovic has, I think, he's lost his last 8 matches. The last win he had was in Umag.
Yeah, and we were there.
Back in July, long time ago. And he won against Navone here in Belgrade to end that horrible run. And for Marozsan, I watched him play he played Rublev. I watched him play Rublev in Umag. He's had a terrible run. He hasn't won since the tournament, the Hangzhou tournament after the US Open. And they both got back to winning ways here in Belgrade, which is good for both of them. The prices have opened up, and the money has come for Lajovic in the opening flurries with Bet Rivers. He's plus 112. Marozsan is minus 139. Spread 1.5. Total here 22.5. I would suppose that Lajovic would want it as slow as possible.
Yeah.
And with the conditions that we're not really unsure of, some saying fast, some saying not so fast. I mean, that's questionable for Lajovic. Lajovic would want it slow. Marozsan would want it a little bit faster to suit him, I suppose.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say. I think this is an intriguing one. It's probably not one I would have chosen if we had any other options, but it's one of the few matches that are being played tomorrow. So, it's worth talking about. It is very interesting. Lajovic coming back from a couple of injuries at the moment. Ankle and wrist are the problems that Lajovic has had, which is the reason he hasn't really played much since Umag, really. He certainly hasn't won since Umag. And I'll tell you what he said yesterday. He said, honestly, if this week wasn't in Belgrade, I would have already finished the season. It's an honour to play in front of the home crowd. I'm not 100% yet, but I'm good enough to compete. So I think that tells you pretty much quite a lot about his condition at the minute. He wouldn't have played anywhere else. If this was in Metz or whatever, no thanks, he would have ended the season. He's just playing because it's in Belgrade, but he says he's not 100%, but ready enough to compete. I would read that as it's good enough to beat Navone, who's obviously a clay guy, underpowered really on these sort of courts. This is a lot tougher. Just looking at what Marozsan's done, on indoor hard so far in his career, it's not been great at all. I can't think of too many reasons why he wouldn't be that effective on indoor hard. Maybe the movement isn't quite good enough, but I don't see any real reason why he shouldn't be effective on this surface. I mean, he stole the match really against Jerry Shang in round 1. I mean, this is the very, very one-sided statistics in favour of Shang, and Marozsan ended up winning the match. Shang won 8 more points overall in total. In terms of service points won and return points won, total was 108 to 92 in favour of Shang. Yet Marozsan was the one who ended up stealing it. So it's a difficult one, isn't it? Marozsan's won a match there that he probably shouldn't have won. As I said, his record isn't great. 3-5 win-loss on indoor hard at main level in his career, and a service points won and return points won total of 97. That's only one better than Altmaier. But looking at Lajovic, this is a surface that he hasn't really been effective on either. Too quick, too low bouncing for him normally. He's only got a 32% win rate in his career on this surface, and a service points won and return points won total of 96. So looking at the head-to-head as well, it's one match in Shanghai, and Marozsan won it very easily indeed. Had a great day, Marozsan, that day. He only hit 6 unforced errors in 2 sets, and he had 14 break-point chances in those 2 sets against Lajovic. So a hugely convincing win for him over Lajovic, again in conditions that you wouldn't think would favour Lajovic. Again, that's quite a slick, quickish surface there in Shanghai. And this is kind of a home tournament for Marozsan as well, of course, because he's from Hungary, which is basically next door to Serbia. It's about as close as it gets at the moment, because the Budapest tournament that used to be played isn't played anymore. It lost its license. So this is kind of as close as it gets for Marozsan. So there should be some, or could be some motivation for him there. Lajovic says he's not fit. Do we take him at face value? Probably. It sounded like quite an honest interview. So I'd probably be looking at Marozsan -1.5 at -110 with Bet Rivers. I mean, I wouldn't have it as an official pick, but if I was betting on that match, I would be tempted on Marozsan with a slight handicap.
Marozsan -1.5, -110 currently with Bet Rivers. The action starts at 5 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow. So make sure you head across to the Bet Rivers website and the app. And if you do place a wager, remember you can bet live and watch live. Watch the match on your tablet, your home computer, or your mobile phone on the Bet Rivers app. Sean, before we leave Belgrade, what's your official picks there? Is it just the one or the two?
Yeah, I'm just taking the one, which is the O'Connell -2.5 games. Slight plus money, that is.
So Connell -2.5 games is the official pick for us over in Belgrade. And now we move to the other tournament in Metz. And obviously this is a tournament to loads of withdrawals again. Big players not participating. Holger Rune has pulled out. We've had Humbert pull out. We've now got Rublev and Casper Ruud with doubts about their participation, because they've qualified for the Tour Championship. So the outright market is in complete turmoil. Before we go on to the one match you've highlighted here, Sean, what are the conditions like here?
I'd say this was slower than Belgrade. It looks kind of similar to what it's done in the past. It's that they play with these Artengo balls, which terrible, really. I mean, it's a slow surface. It's quite gritty. It's not like Belgrade for me. It's a slicker surface. This one's kind of gritty, a bit bouncier, pretty slow. And yeah, I would certainly say definitely out of the two tournaments this week, I would say this is the slower of the two.
Yeah, slower tournament, and let's have a look at the odds for the match we discussed. It's an all-French affair. Quentin Halys up against Pierre Herbert, +245 for Herbert. The spread is 3.5. Total here is 22.5. They have met once before, long time ago, 2017, 7 years ago. Herbert won 6-2, 5-7, 6-3, but he was up a lot higher than his current ranking then of 127 in the world. He has been ranked 36 in the world. Halys is a player I expect won it a little bit quicker, but he is the favourite here with the books. Both of them not in the best of form. Halys has done well in qualification here, won 2 matches and come through a first round match, and Herbert got beat in qualification by Kazoo and come through as a lucky loser here. So interesting one, this one. If it's going to be slow, that probably is a bit of a problem for Halys. If it's slow, it's going to be a problem for Halys here.
I think he's got the power to hit through the courts. A lot of the winners here have been powerful players. Right. It's not dead slow. It's just, I would say, slightly slower than Belgrade. As I said earlier, I watched all of Herbert against Martinez on Monday. Incidentally, Kazoo beat him and then withdrew from the tournament, didn't he? Kazoo made the main draw through qualies and then withdrew. So, what's going on there? A very, very peculiar situation. Rinderknecht also withdrew because he was sick. He was the one I was kind of toying with on the outright. So I was thinking, and then the draw got finished. The qualifying got finished, and the qualifiers got placed, and he got Halys, and that kind of put me off, which is sort of fortunate because then Rinderknecht quit. So it's been a real mixed bag, hasn't it, with players quitting and withdrawing, and then qualifying and quitting, all sorts going on. But as I say, I watched all of the Herbert match, all 3 sets of it. It wasn't the prettiest viewing I've ever seen all season, and you can kind of see why he's a decent sized underdog against Halys. Herbert, he mainly plays on the Challenger Tour these days. His career kind of stalled during COVID. I think he had a problem with COVID. He either had COVID or he refused to take the injections or something like that. There was an issue and with him. I think he had it and he got quite sick and never really fancied travelling for a while, and his ranking dropped. Since then, he's not been the same player, and he's 33 years of age now. So, towards the latter stages of his career, really. This is the first time he's played at main level since last year's Metz, when he made the semi-finals. But he's not the player he was. He only won 33% of his second serve points against Martinez yesterday. Martinez should have won that match, really. He'll need, a much better level, I feel, to beat Halis, who's very effective in indoor conditions. Halis has made a couple of challenger finals in the last month or so already indoors in France. And in his last 10 matches indoors, he's held serve 90% of the time, which is kind of what you would expect for Halis. Very big first serve, big forehand. Not the best returner, but often doesn't need to be. If we look at what Herbert's done in Metz throughout his career, it tells a tale. 85% holds of serve for him, but only 12.4% breaks. I think you know where I'm going here. It feels like a set one overs kind of match, even in these conditions. It should be fairly serve dominated in counter. I haven't seen the odds actually on this, but would be interested in over 10.5 games in set one. I don't know whether you've got the odds up. They weren't up earlier.
That's what I was just trying to find. I'm going to try and find it for you now. If you just... where are we? I don't know if the odds are out yet. We'll have a look for you. Here we go. We have over 10.5 in set one. Is currently plus 155 with Bet Rivers.
Yeah, I think that's pretty reasonable given the two players who they are here, Halis and Herbert. There's not going to be much great returning on display, that's for sure. So, yeah, if you're betting in that one, I think the obvious play really is the set one overs.
Yeah, plus 155. Currently with Bet Rivers, they have 30-odd markets available on these matches as well. Maybe to the last tournament of the year, but it's still a huge array of betting markets on the tennis that Bet Rivers are offering on the app and on the website. So over 10.5 that's our only pick here in Metz. And remember, the Metz tournament starts at 6 a.m. Eastern time, so it's an hour later than the tournament in Belgrade. Is that going to be an official play, Sean, or just going to go with the one?
I'm just having the one. Yeah, this last week of the tour, of the tour can be. Certainly can be a bit tricky, as you've already found out this week already. Yeah, it's
very tricky, very expensive at the moment for me. This tournament going with the underdogs, I'm not doing very, very well, and it doesn't look like it's going to get any better at the moment. Just to let you know, there is one more podcast this week with myself and Sean, and that will be on Wednesday when we look at both these tournaments, and then on Saturday we'll be previewing the Tour Championships. We know the 8 players, the odds and the draw will be named later in the week. Head across to the Bet Rivers website when that comes out. But we'll be previewing the End of Tour Championships in Turin, which start on Sunday, on Saturday. So an extra podcast on Saturday, and that'll be our last tournament of the year that will be covered here. And then we'll be back in the new year to look ahead to the build-up to the Australian Open Championship. It's gone ridiculously quick. Just a little bit of housekeeping. If you're looking at the figures for the year, we're slightly behind here on Game Bet Match, minus 6.51. A brilliant end of the year for Roy Giovanni. Saw him rise to 3.49 units. He's still got a couple of bets open on the WTA Tour Championships. The Premier League had a bad couple of weeks. We're now minus 319 on there. And Extra Time is keeping the whole channel afloat, up plus 975 units. Remember to subscribe to the YouTube channel, Betting Weekly Studios, for all the best content across tennis and on soccer. Give us a follow on our socials at Because We Win on Instagram and Twitter. And download this podcast, Betting Weekly Game Bet Match. I mentioned the newsletter earlier. Go to Betting Weekly Studios and subscribe to the newsletter for extra content from our team here. And also remember, 11 o'clock Eastern Time, Monday to Friday, every single day of the week. Betting Weekly Live, one of the handicapping team will be on, giving you their best bets for that day. We'll talk to Bet Rivers, find out their big wagers for the day and where the money is going at Bet Rivers Towers. If you haven't watched those shows, they're very, very good and insightful if you're looking at planning to have a wager on that particular day on the soccer, tennis and the American football, and also the basketball as well. Sean, that is it for today. One more this week, and then it's the Tour Championships. Enjoy your rest of your day, and we'll catch up again tomorrow. Take care. Thanks for watching. Speak to you all again tomorrow.